I couldn't be more excited to be sitting here with an incredible gentleman that I've had a chance to get to know and I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I'm really happy to welcome David Bantham. Thank you so much for coming over and spending some time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
And we're here to talk about a lot of things, including you and the message that you're putting together to help serve and inspire people, because you have such a powerful story to tell. And then also some of the other things that you just wanted to share your experience on, things that people can utilize in their lives to kind of feel better, and that's mentally, physically, emotionally. And so I thank you for spending some time. So maybe we could just start out by just sharing a little bit about you and just what you do, and also maybe if you want to share what your goals are for the future as far as what you're wanting to do and put together to continue to help people.
Well, that's quite a question.
If you want to.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I've been a Christian for 35 years, and I've knew that God had a special plan for people, and that it was supposed to be something that when they found it, it would be using their skills, talents, abilities, experiences, and that whenever they found this thing, which you could say is their destiny or their calling or whatever.
Their purpose, right?
Yeah. That it's you work and you get paid for it, but it's almost like it doesn't seem like work because you love it so much.
Exactly.
And I've actually wanted that maybe more than a lot of people, and believed that it was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And yet for 35 years, it doesn't seem like it has. Mm-hmm. On top of that, I've struggled with just being able to hold a job, money, finances, career issues. I've never really known exactly what it was I wanted to do. Yet. And it's been kind of frustrating.
Right.
But the more I learn about the Bible and God and the way He works, I realize that whenever I find this thing or start doing it, it's going to be easy to look back and say how everything just was woven together in a tapestry and kind of orchestrated by God. And a lot of the stuff that I have been so frustrated about, I'm going to find out that He's used all those experiences. I'm just kind of in a state of limbo at the moment. And my goal...
See, now I want to just say something about that, because you have been participating in an event that I've done, and I have watched you, kind of trying to, hone in and zero in on the exact message that you want to share. And you have a very powerful message to share. And I think one of the things that's exciting about you, David, is that everything that's happened to you and is happening to you now, I know is all being used for a higher purpose of you paying that forward and being a tremendous inspiration to other people. I mean, I meet a lot of people as I travel and I teach, and I'm honored to have you as one of my clients, very much so. And you're just so special, and God has such a huge plan, and I know we're not exactly, haven't pinpointed exactly what you're going to do with this message, but it's that voice, that says I'm in limbo. But I don't see you being in limbo, because you've taken action. You have embraced the process that I teach to help you to define your purpose, your message, and to brand that in a way where I think that what most people, you said, I don't think most people feel that way. Well, I think that most people do feel frustrated if they're working at a job, but they know they have a higher purpose, and if they haven't found a way to monetize that, right? I think that's why people go through depression. The addictions become harder to fight in a certain age, because it's that internal voice that says, I know I'm meant for something better. Right. I know that God gave me talents and abilities that no one else has. And why am I not manifesting that at a higher level and doing that, as you say, not for work, but to provide income, right. And sharing that message. So I just want to say that I'm honored to have you in my life. Thank you. And you're just a powerful person. You have a huge heart, and I'm excited for this next chapter of your journey, because everything is being used for that higher purpose.
Yes, it
really is. So I wanted to ask you, because we met through an incredible gentleman, Fred Van Liew, who is somebody that has that same commitment that I have, which is to serve people and help them have a better experience of health and well-being, and we go about it in different ways in our careers. But I wanted to see if you could just share where, how you met Fred. Sure, I met you through Fred, but how did you guys meet the first time?
Well, almost when I first came to Texas, I was in the water business with a guy who he had an excellent business, but he was afraid to mention the health benefits. He only wanted to talk about drinking filtered water because it tastes better. And I guess he was afraid he would get on the wrong side of the government. Oh. And I kept believing, and I knew virtually nothing at that time, but I kept believing that good water's got to be good for the body, right, besides just the way it tastes. Right. And I actually looked Fred up in the yellow pages because I wanted to find somebody that felt the same way I did, because I didn't think I could sell filtered water just because it tasted better. Correct. And I called him up and met with him. And
did you see him online? Is that how you found
No, this was before...
Before the internet?
Maybe not before the internet, but it was definitely before I had a computer.
Right, okay.
And I just looked him up.
How did you know of him?
I didn't. Oh. I believe I literally looked in the yellow pages. Okay. And something in his ad made me realize that he was interested in health. Right. Aside from just... Yes. And
water tasting better.
We seemed to click. Yeah. And we've been friends ever since. I've actually probably worked for him 3 or 4 different times.
Right. That's awesome. And what is it about, like, the products and the services that he provides that you think just provide that extra added amount of value, as opposed to somebody that's out there that just has a filtration system, or there's a lot of people that have different kinds of supplements. What do you think sets him apart from the other companies?
Well, I know that he has honesty and integrity. I know that he really cares about people. Mm-hmm. One of the things, I think he's the only guy ever in any kind of business that I'm aware of that offers a 6-month unconditional money-back guarantee. When you can do that, that's like putting your money where your mouth is. Right. And it's, most people, if you're lucky, you're going to get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right, and they figure by that time you'll forget to send the product back, right? But another thing is, I've seen Fred and his product line evolve a lot. And the cool thing about him is he doesn't have to be pumping any particular product or brand, because he searches literally the world over for the best stuff he can find. And if he finds something better than what he's already selling, he just dumps the old thing and adds the new thing in. And so you can be sure that you're getting the best, at least the best that he's aware of, and he's pretty well connected.
You know, it's amazing because you're not the first person that I've heard say that, where they say that, you know, the average company will take the existing product line, continue to distribute it to their out of inventory, and then replace it with the new. But you're the second person that I've heard say that if there's something better, he'll immediately switch over, no matter how much product is in the warehouse or anything like that. And like you said, that says a lot because, you know, in somebody's integrity, if they don't feel like they can ship something out, you know, in all good faith, knowing it's not the best.
Right.
Right? And that's not normal in the average company.
That's true.
Are there any of the specific products that he has, whether it's a filtration system or any of the, you know, nutritional, the supplements that you've experienced that you'd like to share, you know, on just as far as how it's affected your life?
Well, a couple things. Way back when he first went into energy products, he had an energy mug. I'm trying to think. I don't recall the exact name of it, but it actually was kind of primitive. It had hollow walls and it had energy water inside the walls of the mug. Well, I bought one because I believed what he said, not because I could feel or taste the difference.
Right.
But he had told me that it'll actually turn toxins into non-toxic substances, that it'll turn from the negative right-hand spin to a positive left-hand spin. And I just bought this, and I think way back then my wife probably thought, that's a lot of money to pay for that thing. But my wife is very allergic to fire ants. And it just so happened she was out barefooted in the yard and got like 4 or 5 bites on her foot. And normally, because of her allergies, that would send her to the emergency room.
Oh, wow, really?
But it was after hours, and I said, you know, why don't we try this mug? So she kneeled down and pointed her foot down. I put her foot and toes in the mug,
right,
and she sat there for like 30 minutes and watched TV. And
was there anything inside the mug?
No, just the water in the walls.
Okay.
But the mug was empty.
Really?
Normally those bites would have swollen up into huge red blotches and itched like crazy. After 30 minutes, they were like little pinpricks. You could hardly see them, and the itching was all gone, and you could tell that the poison had been deactivated.
Wow.
And so we were blown away.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. What an amazing story.
Yeah. And I have another amazing story. So
she became a little bit more of a believer at that point.
She became a believer, yes. We have always, ever since I met Fred, we've used a reverse osmosis system.
Right.
And now, because we know the truth about water, even the ice cubes we make with filtered, energized water. And I put one of Fred's energy, it's called an E-tower, next to the storage tank in my RO, so it'll energize that. When we make ice cubes with that water, if the barometric pressure is right, sometimes it seems like if rain is coming or whatever, we get ice crystals spiking up out of the tray, sometimes 2 or 3 inches against gravity. And sometimes the tray has 5, 6, 7 of these. And I've shown it to people, scientists. Nobody has ever been able to explain it, but they just believe it's because the water has energy in it.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, and that's a big part of, you know, the product line that Fred has are different things like the dot for your cell phone and, you know, the pendant. And and me included, you know, when I first heard about it, I'm like, please, really, you know? But you know, as I've actually been conducting these interviews and have had it scientifically explained to me by different doctors that, you know, have explained why it works, it's so simple but so powerful. The things that are available to heal us that sometimes we're just not aware of. So
Right.
yeah, it's incredible. So what I wanted to ask you is, I think a lot of times people, talking about people who are skeptical, is they see. I think most people would love to know that there are alternatives to healing themselves, before they get sick, doing things that are preventative and whatnot. But they'll see Fred on, I don't know, a webinar or on stage speaking or on television or in the media or whatever the case may be, and he's kind of bigger than life, and and got a great spirit. But I still think because people have been through so many difficult things over the years with marketing, they're skeptical. They're like, wow, is this for real? Is this guy for real?
Yeah.
Maybe you could just speak to that, because not only have you known him as a professional business person, but you've worked for him, you've been through some educational programs with him, and you just really know the man.
Right.
Maybe you could kind of share, for the viewer, who you know him to be as a person.
I know him to be a man that truly cares. And I do agree with you. I have a big advantage because I've known him for so long. But if someone hasn't known him, then, and especially if you're not well versed in all these technologies and things, it's almost impossible to discern who's real and who's not. There's so many frauds and charlatans out there. So I think an interview like this, where unless he paid a fraud to come in and boost him up, then here I am.
And I know he hasn't paid you to come in.
Yeah, then here I am telling the truth, and maybe that will help people to realize Fred is a man with honor and integrity. He has a tremendous wealth of knowledge about nutrition,
right.
And he cuts through a lot of the BS that so many other companies put out. I just talked to Dr. Peterson in the hallway about saw palmetto because it's supposed to help with shrinking the prostate. He says, well, some companies will put a 750 milligram label on there, but it's the leaf, and the leaf does nothing. You have to have the berry. And so there's a million things that you would need to know that you don't have time to figure out, but if you can trust the man,
right,
and he knows these things,
right.
And he's going to give you good stuff. But on top of all of that, let's say it didn't work for you. So take it for 6 months and send it back, send the empty bottles back and get your money back.
Right.
Then you can approach that company with the confidence and not fear.
Yeah. And, when I do things like this for companies, I do my research as well. And I know when I first met Fred, I was skeptical. I didn't really understand what he did. And I was like, okay, is this really, making a difference in people's lives? And I have my own back issues. And I remember being on the phone with him one time preparing to do these interviews with his clients and his business associates, and I had a back issue, and so he started telling me, take a shoe, put it under your back. I mean, he starts giving me a directive of I was lying on top of some shoes for 20 minutes, and it was crazy. All of a sudden, I felt so much better.
Right,
and I think that the idea that I could be lying on top of a shoe in a strange location under my back, that's somehow gonna. But it's amazing the stuff that he knows about pain and pain relief, and I've had my own experience with that myself. Because when I sit in this chair, I want to know that the person that I am even interviewing you about, is really serving people at the highest level. And so I appreciate you saying that, because like you said, 6-month guarantee, when do you ever see that? You just don't see that. And what's amazing about what you said is that what I've observed in interviewing people that his clients and his customers, is that if there's something that isn't working, I mean, he will spend time on the phone himself.
Yeah.
You know, with a different. He's, you know, if one thing isn't working, then he's going to adjust it, and he tailor makes that diagnosis for each person.
Yeah, there's very few company owners that would actually take the time to talk to an individual customer that he may have never heard of before.
And in your experience, have you seen him on a cell phone talking to a client personally?
He used to irritate me because we would go out for lunch or to visit or to do something, and his customers take such high priority. He'll interrupt me and grab that call even if there's 10 calls in a row.
Well, interestingly enough, as I was preparing to produce these, you know, interviews for him, he's done the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And I found it very irritating that I'm trying to like get prepared to interview one of his business colleagues or one of his clients, and he's talking to one of his customers on the phone.
Yeah.
And then I thought, isn't that fabulous? You know what I mean? Because you're right. There's very few business owners that will prioritize their customers, their clients over, you know, something else that, you know, theoretically could look more important.
Right.
So I appreciate that. So David, I just wanted to also just ask you, you know, from, you know, the time that I've known you, you know, I think that there are people, like what I really, like I said, appreciate about you is, you know that God has destiny on your life, and you know that you have something really powerful internally to share. And you've taken action. You're going to an educational seminar. You are participating in different programs to kind of zero in, you know, and mine being one of those. But there are people out there who they're just at home, depressed, not taking action. And I know that you've struggled with some of those challenges, you know, of having that voice, you know, on your shoulder telling you, what's the point? Why should I leave the house? I'm not going to, you know, figure it out, you know, whatever. I mean, like I have that voice that sits on my shoulder, and it ran my life pretty much a lot through my 20s and almost destroyed me. And then
I think it's called the devil.
Well, yes, and people call it different things. Yes, it is the, you know, that self-destructive voice, and for people who are uncomfortable, almost they're frightened to even think of that, even though, yes, I agree with you, but it's that, you know, dream-stealing voice that steals away every, not only dream, I think, that we have, but our destiny and purpose that we have, you know, those God-given talents and purpose. So what I wanted to just ask you, because you've done this, is what do you say to the person that is watching us, maybe, you know, in a little video clip, they're home, they are frustrated, they are beat up, they have lost their faith, but there's that glimmer inside of them that says, maybe, you know, maybe there's some hope, but they've almost lost all hope. Like, because you've worked through some of that. Like, what do you say to that person about taking some action? I mean, do you have a message to share to them that can help them? Because I know you've overcome a lot of those challenges. Because you could be home right now.
Well, I would
doing
say
nothing.
Most of life boils down to what you think, what you believe, and what you choose. If you've got that voice, and I believe everybody does, then believe in the opposite, which would be God and Jesus Christ, and believe that He will speak to you. And you don't have to go to church. In fact, if you haven't heard from Him and you are going to church, maybe you need to stop and just quiet yourself, simplify things a little bit, ask Him questions, and then be prepared to write the thoughts down that come into your mind, because half the time He's talking to us, we don't even know it's Him. But he says, my sheep hear my voice. So if you don't think you can hear from God, that's because the other voice is telling you that. So quiet yourself, simplify things, spend some alone time. Skipping a meal is good if you don't want to go on a big fast, but go be by yourself with a pen and pencil, a pen and paper, ask him a question, and then write down what you think he said. And you'll begin to realize you can hear him speak. And he will, throughout the Bible, he says he will lead us, he will guide us, he will protect us. And it's a journey. It is a journey. It's not going to happen instantly. The Israelites were in the desert for 40 years. And they were being tested. And unfortunately, most of them failed. They griped and moaned and groaned and complained and didn't trust him. So their kids went into the promised land and they didn't get to go. But the cool thing about God, no matter who you are, he created you. He created you the way you are, and you can be content with the way you are. You can actually be happy about it if you trust him. And we hear all these success stories about great business people, great athletes, maybe artists, people that make a huge contribution to the world, and we think, oh, well, I can never be like that. But that's not true. Because if you fulfill the destiny that God has planned for you, that's as big as you can get.
Right.
That's as big as it gets, and it only matters between you and God. One of the most destructive things there is for us to do is compare ourselves with other people. Right. I mean, what if an ant started comparing himself with a rabbit? I mean, he'd feel like dirt. But he's not the rabbit. But he can do stuff the rabbit can't do. And
I love when you share that technique about going and writing. And like you say, if you're not hearing the voice of God, or if you choose to call that your higher self, or whatever the case may be, because there's a lot of people that have gotten very disconnected from their spirituality, and going to the beach, going to the park, going somewhere in nature. I know for myself has always, for me, the ocean. If you don't live by the ocean, a lake, I don't know, water for me is very powerful, a stream, in somewhere, like you say, a beautiful park with trees. And I, similar to you write down that voice. I started writing down both. I was writing down what that negative voice was telling me, because that's really the only one I could hear. And then starting to try to come up with, I couldn't even hear that other voice, the positive voice. And that was a very dark time in my life. And like you say, being stuck for 40 years, I went through an entire decade of just reevaluation through my late 20s to late 30s of that. And the pathway wasn't clear, but I think it's that faith of having faith that if you keep doing the footwork, you can't do nothing, but you have to do the footwork,
right.
And trust, right. And turn it over, that there is a plan. And I appreciate that so much, because I think that little techniques of things that people can do who are really stuck can make a tremendous, tremendous difference. And I know for me, that was really one of the things that I think saved me from listening to that destructive voice that wanted to completely destroy every dream that I had, which was for me to write it out, what it was saying, and then when I looked at it, I remember one of my mentors and coaches said to me, when you read that after you write it out, can you imagine, and I didn't have a child at the time, I do now, and so it's even more significant to me now, but at the time they said, if you had a child, or if you have a nephew, or if you were about 2 years old, can you imagine saying those things to that child on a regular basis, like every day. And it was so horrifying to me because it was so nasty. You're not good enough, you're not smart enough, when people find out who you really are, they're going to find out you don't have, all the intelligence that they thought you did, and you're not talented enough, you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough. It just went on and on and on. And the things that were coming out of me, I thought, what if I said that to, my child, wasn't alive yet. But then they said, well, the point was we all have that inner child inside of us, So I was allowing this voice to abuse my child, because every one of us, I know we act like we're adults. We're still all little kids to a certain degree on the inside, even if we all don't want to admit it. We all have that child that just wants to be happy and play and have people appreciate us and love us and give us a hug and all of these things and tell us we're valuable and that we have something to share. So, I think for me, when I was able to use the technique that you're talking about, and it's something that I teach through when I speak and through the different systems that I have for people. I know for me, that was so huge, to see what that nasty negative voice was saying, and then to start speaking to it very slowly. But I started to answer that voice with somebody who would protect that little child. What would somebody who was trying to protect that child from that kind of if you saw somebody in the market, or if you saw somebody abusing a child in that way, what would you say?
Right.
And then started to do to counteract that. And what would you do? You'd want to take that child away from that person and get them away. So that, it's interesting because that was how I started to kind of reprogram that negative voice. And you call it, reparenting yourself. You get rid of that critical voice in your head. And it may not be a parent. It could have been a teacher. It could have been a parent. It could have been a spouse. There's a plethora of different things. But I appreciate you sharing your experience with that and the skill set with that, because I think that whatever different skills and techniques that you can apply to keep that voice off your shoulder. And what's amazing is that it's not just for the average person. I've known millionaires and people who've been famous, they still struggle with that voice, but they don't let it run their life. I still have that voice in my head, but if I hear it, I'm like, please, I don't have time for you today. I've got a lot of things going on. I've got, things to do and things to achieve. I'm a mom. I'm like, shut up. I don't have time to listen to you or deal with you today. Go away, And I'm much stronger, but I acknowledge it. It doesn't completely ever leave.
No, it never does. The Bible says we can have power over it. We can actually even rebuke it and take those thoughts captive. And one of the main things I've learned from the Bible is we can actually control our thoughts. In fact, if we're going to be successful, we have to do that.
David, do you notice that the more progress you make now in your journey of kind of identifying, what you are going to do in service, to God, do you notice that as you're committed to going out and sharing your message and inspiring people and helping people and finding that vehicle of how you're going to do that, that sometimes that voice can get stronger and more challenging because somehow there's this universal, knowingness that you're going to go out and make changes.
Right.
And so sometimes people have it get even stronger, because it knows that you're going to basically take that other direction and you're not going to listen to those negative thoughts and you're going to go out and make something happen of your life. Have you experienced that?
Yes. I think God actually uses, I call him the devil, as a tool. Mm-hmm. And I guess an example might be a baby eagle. when he's ready to fly, the mom starts pulling out all the comfy feathers out of his nest, and all that's left is a bunch of prickly sticks. And he's supposed to be uncomfortable, but then act accordingly and go do the next thing.
Right.
But the Bible says that God will never let anything happen to us that we can't handle. So he actually controls the level of stuff. And yes, the more you mature, the more stuff comes at you. But that's so you'll continue to grow, because otherwise you won't. Because human nature is, if we got no problems, we're just going to pretty much sit and veg out and take it easy. In our comfort zone. Yeah. Right, right. Well, I'm just real excited to have been able to spend the time with you today, and I appreciate the fact that I've had a chance to know you, and I get to kind of share the journey and watch you manifest these wonderful things in your life, and you already are a blessing to so many other people and an inspiration to other people. And I think there's people that just listen to us right now that are stuck, and they're frustrated, and they're scared, and they're not taking any action. And just by listening to you and hearing your story, you've given them hope and some strength to move forward. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I just have to give you a hug. My pleasure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.